Alright, this is Adam's Jeep. We're doing a update for 2020. What he's doing is pulling his stock Dana 44 rear. He's got a Curry RockJock Dana 60 rear now going in, and in the front he's got a Curry RockJock 44. So this is the RockJock 44. And what knuckles you say you running? Ranchos?
Yeah.
So this is the Rancho knuckles on the Curry / Carbon. This is a Carbon Off-road did the build on the internals. So he's running the E-Locker front and rear now. He's got the Synergy double adjust control arms, all 8 on the way. Doing a hydraulic ram. We got the gearbox already in. I'm not sure if you can see that down there. That's the RedNeck Ram Off-road. He's running rock crawler triple rates. These are, what's the advertised lift on these rock crawlers? 4.5 inch. The Jeep's what, 09, 08? 09. It's an 09 JK manual. And he's got all his bumpers and flares and rock rails. Everything's done with Raptor liner. He does that all himself. Right now he's doing cables for the rear brakes. We're having to reroute the brake cables. We're going to come down underneath the crossover tube right there for your filler neck. He's going to reroute the cables below that to buy us more room to flex. With the longer shocks that he's got coming, we're out of room, so we're gonna have to just buy back what we can. What are you gonna do for, you're doing the High-Steer kit, you doing the 2.5 ton Fusion setup, or what are you gonna go with? Do you know yet?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do the Fusion one.
So this is gonna get the Fusion 2.5 ton High-Steer setup. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of welding on the axle to set up for the Ram yet. Just poking through it this over the next month. Hopefully we'll get it done in about 4 weeks or so. We both have full-time jobs, so we're not a shop. But yeah, Adam's also pausing now and again to watch the Steeler game. We're in the Pittsburgh area, so that's big to him. I don't watch stuff like that. Let's see, here's the old rear. So he had a Dana 44 with Eaton True Track alloy axles. Never broke it, but he got a good deal at Easter Jeep Safari with this Carbon Off-road, getting these axles. So that's where we are, and most of the stuff's been sourced by NorthRidge. That's his preferred vendor for his parts. And what's this top you have? That's a best topper?
Best top, yeah.
Yeah, he's not a real big fan of it. I mean, he has a lot of leak problems and whatnot, and they have tried to work with him to get it sealed up, and it's never worked. So he has to keep a cover on it when it's outside. But it does look cool. I don't know. So, anyways, that's what we're doing right now around here, playing with Jeeps. All right, so the Jeep is coming together now. What do you think about our install? Do you have any words of wisdom for like the people of YouTube land about doing this kind of install on their Jeep at home in their garage?
Save an extra $5,000.
And do what?
For extra parts.
Oh, that's right, for the unexpected need for the Synergy double adjust upper and lower control arms that we ended up going with on front and rear. So the reason Adam's mentioning that is because the 60 doing the, what is this called? RockJock, right? The Carbon Off-road. That's their emblem right there, Carbon. So the Carbon Off-road RockJock 60 with the bigger snout and whatnot on it. The problem that we had with Adam's Jeep, this is what, a 2009?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure all JKs are the same, but with the factory length aftermarket arms that he started with, it ended up putting the axle housing was going to be basically into the back of the gas tank right here. The snout, the webbing right there that you see was going to be hitting that corner. We were going to basically be rubbing the emergency brake cables up into this wall right here. So he went with the Synergy double adjust front and rear, and what we did was we stretched the wheelbase. What we say it was a 3-inch total stretch, like two. I think it was like 1 3/4, 2 inch in the rear, and then around an inch in the front. Doing that bought us a ton of room. And the other thing that we did learn during this whole thing was about the drive shaft. So let me see here. Let me switch sides. I'll take you underneath with me real quick. So when you buy these aftermarket drive shafts from these companies, like what are these ones? These are Adams drive shafts. Okay, all these different companies. All right. So what they do? Okay, they put a grease fitting right here. And what you're trying to grease is the splines, the male-female interface of these splines here. So they put a grease fitting right here. These are from Adams. These are not Spicer. And the hole, the bleed hole for the grease is right here facing that joint. So when you push grease into here, the grease fills up this chamber and then pushes right out that hole. So it doesn't push the grease up into the slip joint right here. There's no way to force it. Now what we did, we kind of tried to block that hole with our hand, just pushing our finger as hard as we could and slowly pushing grease until you could see, I think you could see I got a little bit of grease starting to ooze out of here. So I was able to slowly work my way to it. Now, we went to Greensburg Machine and Driveline, had the rear made, and the rear we used Spicer. So you see what Spicer does. Spicer puts the grease fitting here, and instead of running the splines all the way, this is an actual double lip seal right here on the Spicer. So you have your double lip seal. Grease goes in here. Grease can't come out the double lip seal. Grease has to come through your male-female spline interface, and that grease has to come out the bleed hole here on the same side as what the Adams does. But the Adams puts the grease fitting and the bleed hole side by side. So our opinion now is that making sure that you have the Spicer slip joint is a double lip sealed to keep your mud and your crud out. It has the grease fitting placed at the right place so that the grease gets forced through better. Overall, this is going to be a better, longer lasting slip joint, and it's going to be money better spent than going with your aftermarket pre-built shafts such as the Adams. So here you can see the Dana 60. By pushing that backward, it moved all that webbing back and got away from this corner. Before we were essentially, you could actually see my marks that I had drawn on that webbing. That was, under articulation, that was going to be a problem. So being pushed back here with the longer arms, we were able to eliminate all those problems. So the Carbon 60, you better plan to move it back. Take your parking brake cables that you see coming out of the floor right here. Okay. They used to go up above everything right here. So you see we drop below the fuel filler hose pipe here. So what that does is buys you a few more inches of travel so that as you articulate with these axles, with the rock crawler long travel, the 888 springs, that just buys you a lot of extra room there versus running the cables in the stock configuration. So all you got to do is take them apart and just run them down underneath. Trying to think, is there anything else you could think of, Adam, that we ran into trouble-wise? I'm thinking everything else was pretty much just taking the time and measuring and doing it right. And then essentially it didn't go too bad. We just didn't expect to have to buy all new arms when we already had aftermarket arms. Just didn't have the adjustable. And then the other thing I will say is the double adjust is the way to go, because we had to adjust them while taking measurements, the center axles, square everything to the frame, and basically get the build so that it was going to drive down the road relatively square and straight. And if you had, like, say you had rock crawler arms or any of the arms that you have to knock them out of the bracket, adjust them, put them back in, tighten them, it would have taken days instead of 2 hours. And then as you can see here, we did the Fusion 4x4. This is called the Fusion 2.5 ton tie rod. And you see we've got the RedNeck Ram hydraulic assist. That's all been added. He did the High-Steer system with the Rancho knuckles. So we got Rancho knuckles on both sides now. Shocks are matched so that when the spring ends up falling dead, basically reaching its full length, at that same, within, you know, fractions of an inch of that, the shock is done. The shock is fully extended. So that at no point will the springs be pushing the shocks. We haven't decided if we're going to do limit straps yet. We've talked about it a little bit and kind of went away from that conversation momentarily. Yeah, overall the build is just about done now. We should have it on rubber real soon. I think we're going to do a cross member. What's the cross member you went with? You went with that E-coat?
Clayton.
The Clayton Off-road. Yeah, it's sitting back here behind Adam. So this is the Clayton. This is the much heavier 3/16 steel compared to the tin stock one. So we have that yet to do. And other than that, we're getting about done. He did his Eaton E-Locker switches right here. So he'll be able to go Eaton for the rear, for the front. And all that was wired up through using the Eaton supplied relays and fuse holders and whatnot. So nothing was too difficult about that. But that's it. Jeep's just about done. Get her on the trail this coming year, see what it does. All right, thank you.